Unafraid Show Live is here. We got to talk about Dave Portnoy going over the Big Noon Kickoff, and I wonder if they read his Urban Meyer tweets before that. And Donald Trump is crafting, well, there's people around him are crafting an executive order that I believe will hurt college football more than it is going to help it. I'll explain to you why. USC is the latest example, and I'm talking about Southern Cal is the latest example of money trouble in college football. And these are the consequences of college football financial silliness. And it's not just them, there are other schools in the same situation. And in another series of bad ideas, Missouri head coach Eli Drinkwitz says that a 30-team playoff might be the answer. Now, it's awful, but it also has a good point buried in it. All right, you guys make sure that you like, subscribe, get notifications, tell a friend about the show. I'm George Wrighster, former NFL player, former college football player, college football analyst on your TV and right here on your YouTube. All sorts of content here, so make sure that you stick around for it. All right, so we're going to start, though, with Mr. Dave Portnoy going over from Barstool Sports, going over to Fox Big Noon Kickoff. So we all know what happened with the fallout from Joy Taylor, Emmanuel Acho, and, that whole situation. So Acho was the guy who was, their college football guy. But now they are adding Dave Portnoy in, which is literally a counter to ESPN having Pat McAfee on, because both of them two guys can drive it, the Barstool started with the Saturdays are for the boys thing. They're huge college football and just sports fans in general. They embrace the betting angle, everything else, just like Pat McAfee does. It is a no holds barred, you have no idea what's coming sort of thing. Now, I understand the move by Fox because they're like, yo, we got to counter Pat McAfee, and Barstool is a giant, mover of culture in terms of for a certain demographic. So I 100% understand this. Now, they are planning on bringing on Dave Portnoy, Dan Katz, and leaning into the Big Ten coverage from the average fan perspective, the same way that the ESPN does from the SEC. Now, Portnoy, who's a donor of Michigan fan, and then you got Katz from Wisconsin. They are both masters at garnering attention. And Fox clearly is not afraid of controversy because they had Clay Travis on as part of the Big Noon Kickoff crew. I've worked with Clay Travis. They've had Urban Meyer on as well. They are not afraid of what's going to happen in the comment section. However, though, I do find it funny, though, that that there's been a war between Dave Portnoy, Michigan guy, and Urban Meyer when he was over at Ohio State, because he has spent the last 15 years trolling Urban Meyer online and saying some of the wildest stuff imaginable. Now, I got a couple receipts for you. And I was like, well, they didn't care about them tweets. One of them, classless move by Urban Meyer, faking health issues so he never loses to Michigan. Now, some of these could be, he can write him off his tongue in cheek and, do him a shtick. But still, so I guess there's hope for me with my Urban Meyer tweets. Who's not getting enough blame in this Aaron Hernandez thing? Urban Meyer recruits murderers. Like, damn, okay. And then lots of people have beat me to this suggestion, but I'd love to hear from Zach Smith, who the guy that Urban Meyer fired, and that whole thing. Sketchy stuff there. And hear about the domestic violence he and Urban Meyer uncovered to win football games and how that relates to his elite leadership and culture behavior because he was starting a new podcast. So this is going to be very interesting to see Dave Portnoy and Urban Meyer work together. So this feels like they had to have some sort of conversation, or they just gonna be like, listen, we're just gonna be professionals when it's up there. But you can't truly believe that Urban Meyer is going to be 100% okay, even if Dave's like, hey man, I'm just joking, Michigan Ohio State thing, because Dave wants this Fox deal. It means more money, more attention, more eyeballs for Barstool, which is clearly a very successful company. And I do believe that this is going to be a very positive move for folks over at Fox, that they will not be unhappy because they are going to generate ratings. And they are in the business because remember, Fox has the #1 NFL pregame show. So they are used to that. And now they want to have the #1 college football show. So you are going to see a war for the next couple of years between Fox and between ESPN for that #1 spot of the college football show. So you are going to see an elevation, escalation of it. And part of it is that Fox leans so heavy into the Big Ten, whereas obviously ESPN's leans towards the SEC, but with college football game day, the difference is that college football game day, they lean heavily into yes, the SEC, but the best available matchup for the next week. So they will head out to California they will head out to Washington State. They will get a Big 12 game. Obviously not over some SEC games. They'll go to Clemson, Notre Dame. They'll do all of those things. And that's where Big Noon Kickoff has to say, yes, we are in line and in bed with the Big Ten, but we are also going to have to service some of our other college football games at a higher clip than what they have if they want to truly break through and be the #1 college football game show. College football pregame show. So, and it's also going to be interesting because you have Dan Katz, Big Cat, as you would know him as, because he regularly makes fun of who is FS1's biggest media personality and one of the biggest in all of sports, which is Colin Cowherd. Because Barstool's attitude has always been that everybody is fair game, even the people inside of Barstool. So their whole thing is we're not going to take things personally, but that don't mean that everybody else don't take things personally. So it is going to be interesting to see if everybody is able to play nice in the sandbox when it comes to this whole marriage of Barstool and with Dave Portnoy. And you guys make sure that you guys like, subscribe, get notifications, tell a friend about the Unafraid Show. All right, the next thing up, because we are here to explain college football to you simply and to guide you through this whole joint. So, you know about the NCAA house settlement. If you are here watching, of course you know about that. We have explained the details of it. You can go look at other videos, lives, and all that stuff as well. You understand that there is a SCORE Act coming, which is legislation that has been put in front of the Senate, and then it's going to have to go to the House, which could lead to antitrust exemptions for college football and all these sorts of things. Well, now Donald Trump, the president of the United States, is expected, I should say, to sign an executive order to help college football, to preserve college athletics from an unprecedented threat and destruction. That's the way that they are phrasing. Yes, preserve college athletics from an unprecedented threat from destruction. So I believe that this is going to hurt college football more than help it because college football and their leadership has been hard-headed. And this is why we are in the position that we are in with NIL, with the transfer portal and everything else. Because you have to go back to when, the Ed O'Bannon lawsuit. The NCAA spent over $100 million fighting against NIL and fighting against the transfer portal. And now they're going to be on the hook for almost another $500 million worth of lawyers and hiring Deloitte and everything else to keep money out of players' pockets. When the actual answer to the whole situation is, and this is where I say that college football's leadership has been completely hard-headed, and Trump signing an executive order is not going to help. So is that the answer has always been collective bargaining, but we'll get to that in a minute. Because a draft of the presidential executive order, it talks about potentially giving, implementing new policies related to athlete compensation, giving college football and the NCAA in general antitrust protection, athlete employment, state law uniformity, and then Olympic sport participation. Now, on one hand, there are some good points in this, the same thing that are in the SCORE Act, that colleges are talking about cutting more Olympic sports, which means scholarships for like swimming, rowing, gymnastics, all that sort of stuff will be completely done and gone away with because they will cut those sports. So protection of that, 100% good. Same thing in the SCORE Act. Now, the biggest problem with this is the antitrust protection as it relates to the players, because antitrust protection without collective bargaining is terrible for the players. Terrible for the players. And if Donald Trump, and a lot of this is in the Yahoo article, and you guys can make sure that you guys check that out as well. So, and I'll put a link to it in the bio, and I'll tweet it out if you're watching on Twitter. The reason why this is such a big issue is that, quote unquote, saving college sports, you can't save college sports by keeping the exact same system. This is where the NCAA has been hard-headed. They keep trying to throw Band-Aids on a problem when there is no Band-Aid. It is a blow it up and start over, particularly in football, because college football, the championship for college football, the college football playoff, isn't even governed by the NCAA. But the NCAA has power to sanctions teams and stuff. It's silliness. It is absolute craziness. And this is where it is important to pay attention to the devil in the details, because some other points in this, it is going to provide leaders with protection from antitrust and long-term availability of scholarships and opportunities for student athletes, prevent unqualified and unscrupulous agents, which I'm a huge fan of that, because there are kids out here getting absolutely bent over by some of these scumbag fake agents who are taking way too much money from what they were supposed to be doing. But remember, it does not matter an executive order being signed. These things are still going to go to court. You still got the SCORE Act, you have the House settlement, and then collective, which are going to be suing based upon the House settlement because they can't get the money to the kids that they promised them, which is a side tracking, which is a way around the House settlement and the agreement. So this is a whole nother issue, a whole nother problem. And this leads to why the NCAA and the leadership is so piss poor in terms of what they have done. Because how on earth did you spend 3 years negotiating a House settlement on NIL, back payments, and everything else, and you didn't talk about any of the details? Because why on earth, within 10 days of it being signed, and of it implementing in July 1st, by July 10th, you had Deloitte denying deals and collectives saying that they are getting ready to file lawsuits surrounding it. And I told you guys here that this was absolutely coming, that these lawsuits were going to come, and within 2 weeks, you will see them, because the collectives are acting on behalf of the schools. And then the whole point was to have a $20.5 million cap, that there be a cap for pay for play. Kids can make as much NIL as they want. But the issue is, when you have, let's say you have the University of Texas. They're under the $20.5 million cap. Now their collective is then saying, and I'm using them as an example, not as them as somebody who is not accusing them of anything. So the University of Texas, they give their money out to their players as they see fit with that $20.5 million for all their sports and everything else. So then the collective says, ooh, wow, we want to get better recruits. We want to get more players. We want to do all of this. So what we're going to do is we are going to set up events so then these players can get more money. Now, mind you, I got a kid playing college football. I want them to get all the money that they can. But it creates, there's the spirit of the rule and there's the letter of the law. Now, this is where they did not talk about the details, because the spirit of this should not allow a collective to say, hey, Johnny, hey, Jimmy, we want you to come to our school. We're going to give you $1 million. Now, this doesn't fit under the cap, so we're going to give you $200,000 from the collective, and then $800,000 you're going to get in NIL. So the things that they were planning to do is, show up to this golf tournament, pick up $500,000, pick up $200,000 for a kid who hasn't played there, or a backup, or somebody that you just, that's not the star quarterback. And I've used Aaron Donald as an example. The man's a Super Bowl champion, handsome, in shape, six-pack abs, one of the best to ever do it, was getting his NIL was worth $100,000 to Nike, 150 at the max. And you think that this kid is worth 200,000? This is why Deloitte is denying deals. It doesn't work. The math doesn't math. And now you have people trying to circumvent those rules, which they didn't discuss, which was 100% idiocy. They just wanted, we'll work out the details as we go. They don't even have the enforcement detailed yet. There's going to be a fight over the enforcement between state laws and everything else. So how did you come up with a settlement when all of this, when the details of the settlement are not clear to anybody? There you go. There you go. This is the problem with the people in charge. Now, the next thing up, University of Southern California, the USC Trojans, they have money trouble, and the fallout is the consequences of the college football financial silliness. Because just like everything else here, USC is the example this time, because they are using the example because they are the one who made the news this week. Because there are a lot of other schools that are cutting jobs and sports at a time when there is more money flowing in than ever. Think about that. There is more money flowing into college football in terms of their budgets, in terms of everything else, than has ever been. But there is more debt from athletic departments than there has ever been. So why is that? Because they are not running them like businesses. And people would say, well, then they just need to get rid of the Olympic sports. Nah, that ain't the answer. The answer is that they have spent money, buildings, friggin' all of these upgrades around it just for show, and not balancing the budget. They are running, the athletic departments are being run like the country is being run, where you're operating at a deficit year after year. And you know what happens? This is how you get Elon Musk versus Donald Trump. This is how you get all the fighting about the big, beautiful bill and everything else. It is about people wanting fiscal responsibility. This is what regardless of what side you live on. If you try to live your life, if I try to live my life operating in the red, eventually all the savings that I built up, anything else, it is going to be a problem. Going to be a problem. And the idea of, we'll just increase revenue, we'll do this. Yeah, all of that works. But then when you increase your operating expenses, it becomes a problem. So per USC's interim president, Byung-So Kim, who came in for Carol Folk, he said, quote, we ended fiscal year 25 with an operating deficit in excess of $200 million, which is higher than the $158 million deficit in fiscal year 24. And mind you, this is for the school. So They are estimating that the potential annual revenue loss in federally sponsored research funding alone could be $300 million or more. So think about this, how this works in terms of college sports. So when these universities who are now laying off people in their athletic departments, laying off people in their faculty, how does this look to people at the university? Because remember, there's always fighting between the athletic departments and the schools. Because the the academic people are like, this is an institution of higher learning. This should be prioritized over your little ball, over your little bouncy balls. That's the way they feel. There's always a tension there. And when the school is operating at a deficit, athletic departments are bringing in way more money, still operating at a deficit. You're going to have these academic people looking at these people like, what are you doing? So we got more money coming in the athletic department, but we got to cut jobs here? How does this make sense? So how does this work in the terms of college football? Because USC has a roster that has cost more than has ever been costed before for a USC roster. They have a head coach making like $11 million a year who is, underperforming in terms of wins at this point in time. So I believe at this point, Lincoln Riley's job is about as safe as it can be, no matter what happens this season. Unless he tanks again and the buyout is fully funded by the boosters, aside from that, and that buyout's like 70, 80 million dollars for him and the staff, could be even more than that. So how does that work? So now we're continuing to make bad decisions, and this is where college football has been greedy and operating crazy. So you have all this additional money coming in. You have the conferences acting individually, but then trying to find one set of rules for the players to operate under, when in reality, the only sensible solution, which I said, was collective bargaining, where all of the conferences are operating under one umbrella with one person in charge under all the same rules. And then they can negotiate with the players' representation. So all the players will operate under one set of rules. They will negotiate those rules. And once there is a set of rules, everybody can operate under them. And then there can be some antitrust exemptions. That's it. I don't know why we're making this more complicated than what it needs to be, because this is about as simple as it gets out in the world. This is about as simple as it gets in the world of college football, in the world of college sports. There's a professional model to doing this, and this is why you rarely have labor disputes. And the NCAA is constantly dealing with labor disputes. All right. Now let's get on to what's going on in the SEC, because we had SEC Media Day, and I put out my SEC rankings for this season. A lot of people weren't necessarily happy about this, but is what it is. I got Texas 1, LSU 2, Georgia number 3, South Carolina 4, Alabama 5, Oklahoma 6, Texas A&M 7, Florida 8, Ole Miss 9, Tennessee 10, Arkansas 11, Auburn 12, Missouri 13, Vanderbilt 14, Kentucky 15, and Mississippi State 16. The thing I found funny about this is people were like, "Oh my God, how could you have Tennessee 10th? Oh, they're gonna be okay." So who do you want me to put behind Tennessee? You want me to put Texas, at Alabama, LSU, Georgia, or South Carolina, whose rosters and situation is much better this year? It ain't happening. How about Texas A&M or Florida? No. Ole Miss, nah. Somebody's got to finish at the bottom. Somebody. You may not want it to be you, but that's the reality of it. So these rankings, which you guys can go over on Unafraid Show and look at the entire rankings video. And South Carolina people, we had some technical difficulties. So I owe you a South Carolina video. Boom. You will have it next week, early next week. Book it. Where we're talking about the team specifically because I owe you guys. You guys got about 28 seconds in the video when everybody else is getting about 3.5 minutes. I owe you. All right, so I believe that we are going to see some specialness this season, and that there's only one elite team, and that's going to be Texas. This feels like easy math to me. All right, the last thing that came out of SEC Media Day is that you had this man right here. You may not realize who this man is, but this is Eli Drinkwitz, who is the head coach of the Missouri Tigers, and he came up with a bad idea that had some good ideas and some good concepts wrapped around it. So it was a like they like to say, a shit sandwich. It was except this the good stuff was in the middle. The bad stuff was on the outside. So now he said, quote, my math could be wrong here, but if we did, and he's talking about the college football playoff, if we did the 12, okay, and you have 4 automatic qualifiers, everybody thinks that that's limiting. It's not limiting if you think about it. If you think about it you take those 4 automatic qualifiers, because he's trying to propose a 30-team college football playoff. He said, if you think about it, 4 automatic qualifiers, and then you divide that into 8 opportunities of 8 play-in games. He said, now you're thinking about the SEC playing in for 8, the Big Ten playing in for 8, and since we expanded the bubble to 16, give 3 to the Big 12, 3 to the ACC, and then 1-1. You're like, bro. He said, now you got 30 teams. 30 teams. Now you're talking about an opportunity for 30 teams, 30 fan bases engaged in giving revenue. Now you got 30 teams whose players have access to compete for a championship. So for me, I think it makes a lot more sense. Now, Drink, I got a question. When the hell are we supposed to play these games? Do you want them playing until March? How are you going to play 30 teams? That's half of the NCAA tournament, and it takes them 4 weekends to do that, and they're playing 2 games a weekend. And it takes them a month to do that. So how are we supposed to do this, Drink? When? So now we're already talking about teams potentially playing 16 games if you are in the play-in. But now you might be playing 18 or 19 college football games. The NFL don't even play 18 games. What are we doing? But here is what he did say. He talked about, and here's where the good part was wrapped into this. He said that the preseason rankings factor into how teams are viewed, and that is a problem. Now, that part, Eli Drinkwitz is 100% right about. That when you're looking at the college football playoff, you're looking at access to the playoff, teams do not have the same ability. You look at Arizona State last year. They were on the fringe of the college football playoff until the very end when they won the Big 12. Now, had they started out, remember they finished the regular season 10-2, I believe. If they had started out ranked inside of the top 25, when they got to like 8-2, 9-2, they would have been so far into the top 10, it wouldn't have been a doubt whether they were making the college football playoff or not. Now, whereas if you have a team, like let's say Alabama or Georgia, who's in everybody's top 10 to start the season, they have to lose 3 games to even get potentially out of the top 25, hell, out of the playoff picture. Whereas somebody who didn't start out inside of the top 25, they have to earn their way in, and every time they lose, they get further and further back behind the pile. So Eli Drinkwitz is right that this is a systematic issue. That the preseason rankings, and I've been screaming from the top of the mountaintops for this for the longest time, and I hope that you guys agree with this, is that when we are not giving the best opportunities, well, fair opportunities for the college football playoff, we don't know who the best teams are, because it appears that we know who the best teams are, but we're not actually watching the best teams play. Just saying. And you guys, that is the Unafraid Show live for this week. We coming back next week. 2 more lives, Tuesday, Thursday. Make sure that you tune in, and we will be in the 4:30 hour. This is summertime, kids running around, so we're trying to get the schedule exactly right so we can be consistent for you guys. But make sure that you go over to the YouTube. All sorts of dope videos there every single day. Make sure that you guys like, subscribe, get notifications, and tell a friend about the Unafraid Show. And of course, be one of us. Oh, and thank you too as well, because I put up posted it on Twitter. I posted on the Unafraid Show YouTube board, thanking everybody who were the top commenters this week, because you guys are the reason why the channel is growing like fire. We are going to be up to something, and we got some dope stuff coming for you guys, because you guys are making the channel grow. That means more money's coming in. That means more money that we can put in to what we are doing for you guys. Peace out. Catch you guys next week, and stay on the channel.